So after a couple of bad weeks, a very good week, now we seem to be going into what I would call a normal week. So what am I doing in the markets? What are my goals for the rest of the year going into next year? Stick around, it should be a great video. On top of that, if you stay until the end of the video, I'm going to talk about the time we spent in Japan and a tiny bit because we just got into China and go into what we're doing here and what I like and don't like in the different countries. Should be a great video. Hello, my YouTube friends from beautiful, fancy little thing, China. My name is Adam Khan, and this is Investing with Adam K. Forgive the joke. I'm in the hotel room and didn't have a great background, so chose here. Maybe I should have gone by the window where we have a beautiful view of the city. I hope everybody's doing well. I hope everybody's having a good week. I hope you had a nice Thanksgiving, maybe some plans for Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever holidays you celebrate. I hope everybody's doing awesome. Anyway, markets seem to be doing just fine. And what am I doing? Absolutely nothing different. Now, as always, I'm going to get this out of the way here because my understanding is YouTube has been cracking down on some of this. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. Please do not listen to me. And I really recommend not listening to anybody on YouTube for any decisions you make in your financial portfolios. You need to reach out to a financial advisor, do your own research, and make your own decisions when it comes to figuring out what makes sense for you. Partially, now this is off the cuff and a little bit different, and I know I say this all the time, because everybody's situation is unique to them, and you have to do what fits for you. I mean, the first goal you should really do is figure out what your goal for the money is, and what you hope it does for the future. And I know that sounds stupid, because like everybody thinks, oh, I just want it to make more money and do well. Well, of course we want it to make more money, but everybody has different what that means. Like, you can't take no risk and make a gazillion dollars. You can't take a ton of risk, and it just all changes depending on what's available. And it's a little bit about what I love about the markets is you can dictate by your decisions how things work. Like, there's stocks that are super boring and don't do a whole lot to things that are all sorts of crazy and risk all sorts of money, just like going to the casino. And when I say I'm doing nothing, what does that mean? I mean, I'm not really making any changes. So this is really important. I saw a video recently about a lot of retirees. It was different interviews with people getting into anywhere from like their late 70s or mid 70s into their late 80s who hadn't saved appropriately for the future. And the real reason deep down that I do this video is if I can get out to a couple of people how important it is to save as young as possible and put away as much as you can without impacting your life to where it's just not fun. I really hope I get it out there to somebody that they start putting away and saving for the future and dedicating some money towards that end of their life. It's hard to think about that when you're 18 or 20 years old and super young. But what I can tell you, especially after watching this video, my heart bled. Like, it was just awful. I felt so terrible for these people who lived nice lives. Some of them had had good jobs. Some of them ran into problems, and some of them just didn't really think about it until later in life. And by the time they started thinking about it, things changed and it became really tough. Not only that, whether the world admits it or not, they seem that some of them felt like they were running into ageism where it was very hard to find jobs. On top of that, the energy and some other things, like it had my head spinning of what can we do to help some of the people getting into this situation who really didn't do anything wrong outside of the point of not particularly saving. You know, in Singapore, they have a forced savings account that I think 20% of their income goes directly into an account that gets saved for retirement. Now, maybe that causes inflation, maybe it just causes more competition because I know this sounds stupid, but if everybody has more, that tends to just make things more expensive and doesn't necessarily make things better, because there is a certain amount of just supply and demand that impacts the world. I've talked about that a little bit about real estate, like these concepts of making things more affordable. I don't know that it really makes things more affordable, because if you fix a monthly payment, people have a tendency to buy a more expensive a more expensive home. So if you lower the price for people in terms of their costs, you're probably going to drive the price of the homes up, simply because it's going to end up where it ends up. People can afford what they can afford, and that's what they're going to end up paying. I know that sounds weird, but it's a great talking point that the politicians and the news media and everybody else talks about, making housing more affordable. But that's really difficult to do, because it it doesn't work. You can't just make it more affordable, because again, when you do, the people are going to push it to where the market is, because markets are markets and people don't really have control of it. Anyway, the point is, what I hope for is, if people can put away and save, it really doesn't matter where you put it. If there's just a continual flow of adding money to an account, it should work out over a long time period. You will see fluctuations over the short run, whether it's a big correction, small correction, weekly, monthly, yearly, anything can happen. But if you stick with things for 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 years, inflation and growth tend to take care of itself. I mean, I've seen it with things like baseball cards and paintings, and now gold and silver are doing it, and it had a huge fluctuation. So those of you who aren't as old as I am and haven't been watching it as long as I have, and I don't mean that like the way it just sounded, because I heard it come out and I don't mean it the wrong way, but when I was a kid back in the late 70s, I remember everybody talking about gold, because it had shot up and gone to over $800 an ounce, which was just crazy at the time. Now, over the next 20 years, it fell from those highs to below 300. And I remember buying gold in the high 200s, and the guy at the exchange talking to me, and he's like, "You're such a moron. Nobody gives a crap about gold. Gold is just silly. It has no value." And unfortunately, I listened to him and I didn't buy as much as I wanted to. Now, I did buy some, but not a lot. And part of it was, I heard him, I respected him, he had been doing it longer, and I thought, geez, what value does gold have? And I just thought it had been long enough, and the market felt like it had finally died, and now they were talking about it being so cheap. Well, look at what it's done since then. And I find that to be the case with any collectible. And it works really well sometimes with the things just that die and nobody pays attention to for years, before something seems to stimulate it and it catches itself and starts going again. So most things that have value and people think of as an investment or a collectible or some fashion of value like that, over a really long period of time will probably continue to go up in value. My theory with things like baseball cards is, it just goes into collections and sits, and the longer it goes there, the more that a younger generation's willing to pay because of inflation over time. So now to the good stuff. What have I been buying? What am I paying attention to? What do I like here? I did pick up a little Oracle as it pulled back around $200 a share. If you do think it interesting, be real careful, because they have earnings coming out next week and it could really fly either way. I took it as a little bit of a gamble, thinking like after the last earnings, the way it reacted, maybe if I get lucky and they have another good earnings report with good follow-up afterwards, it could just go right back up where it was. Maybe I'm just too optimistic. Maybe it fell a good amount for good reason and it got ahead of itself. But Oracle is one of the stocks I picked up. I do want to talk about Robinhood a little bit, and I want to mention about Oklo a little bit, because I've been going back and forth with one of the guys in the comment section, and he made some comment about I could just kind of kick him off. Understand, if somebody's respectful and they're not rude, I have no reason to kick anybody off. And if they don't say anything offensive, whatever, it doesn't bother me to have disagreements or anything else. But I hope I've been clear when I talk about Oklo, that I see that as no different as betting on black or red in a casino, and it could go to zero. They are a company that I took a flyer on simply because the guy who got put in as the director of energy, not because I saw good fundamentals in the company. It turned out super lucky. It does not mean it is a good pick. I was just paying attention to politics and figured maybe I'll get lucky with this. Nothing has changed in that respect. I think that stock could go to zero. I wouldn't advise people investing in it. It just turned out okay. A certain percentage of my portfolio can get left towards stocks that have that type of risk. I figure if I use less than 5% of my portfolio and put it in things like that, if they go to zero, it's not going to implement or affect anything dramatically where it has a major impact. And if I get lucky, well, maybe I have something like that that goes up 10 times over a time frame. Now, I didn't expect it to go as quickly as it did, to be perfectly honest. I was hoping to triple my money over the 4-year period of the administration. So far what's happened has been a complete shock. I've actually gotten out of about half of the position in different forms, some using calls that I'm still short the calls against the position, and some of it just I sold a little bit of the portfolio of the shares too. But that being said, even when I talked about Robinhood, I also see that as more of a trade. So try to keep in mind when I discuss some of this stuff, some things like Amazon and Google and Target, which I know I love Target and everybody makes jokes about it. But that being said, those I see as investments, and I don't mind putting some money in, and I hope people recognize the difference, because it went back and forth, and he kind of called me out on the Oklo trade like I'm some moron, and how could I recommend things like that. And that's why I just say I hope I'm clear when I do. And I don't care that he called me a moron. Nobody has to say like, oh, don't worry about the people in the comment sections. I'm actually just saying it to clarify with everybody else. I hope there's a recognition of the different types of trades. There's a reason I have a set it and forget it account, and I stick with the companies like Chevron and Target and Amazon. And there's a reason that I have a trading account where I put the things like Robinhood and SoFi and some others where I'm using options and some other things. And then I might have things like I have Conagra in both. I have a set it and forget it position in Conagra because I'm happy to get that dividend, and it looks like their financials are in order, that they should be able to pay it. So if I can get an 8% return, I'm super happy with that. And I actually hope the stock will drift higher. But I'm even using Conagra, which I know I've talked about, in the trading account when I've been selling both calls and puts against it to see if I can really push that yield or my return significantly higher, which even with it slowly going lower, I've been able to do, which is kind of cool to watch. It's made me start doing that a little bit with Verizon and Pfizer as well. And these are like the most boring stocks in the world that I really didn't expect to trade options with. But on Pfizer, if I can pick up 12 cents every week or two, as a percentage, that really adds up, even though it's like silly pennies for the trades. But when I do the math over a year, if I continue to just stay on top of it and sell those options, it works out really good. And let's talk about Target again, because every time it gets below about $86 a share, it starts to get attractive to me again. So I add on every time it gets below there in my trading account actually, and then I'll sell calls against it to get out of that trade while I hold on to a core position in the set it and forget it account. I think Target's a great value. My only concern with Target is each quarter that comes around and they don't seem to be getting things in order and actually improving, it does start to cause some concern. So I recognize the thing that people say where they hate it. But I think in time it'll do just fine. And in the meantime, their numbers are phenomenal. I know it's not growing, like that's the real negative, but their price to earnings value is around 12. So it's a super bargain. Like I don't feel like I'm overpaying for it or worried about that it's just gonna get crushed, so long as the revenues continue to come in and they continue to make enough to be able to pay that dividend. That's the other part that I love. Now, I listened to somebody who was talking about they should be using that money to buy back stock. I have to tell you, as somebody who likes getting a dividend, I'm okay that they're paying a dividend. I would rather them not take that and create the shareholder equity by buying back more shares and shrinking the float so that the shares become more valuable. I get the thought process, but I'm an old guy and I don't work as much, so I like having those dividend checks coming in, and I'm perfectly happy how Target does it. Now, they use approximately 50% of their free cash flow to pay those dividends. So it's not like it's in jeopardy of using up too much of the income coming in order to pay it, where they're risking taking on debt or anything else. That's the other reason I really love Target. And then all the negativity around it for things like having to shut down stores. Well, if I'm in a position that I can shut down stores that aren't profitable, that means I'm left with the good companies or the good stores, the good outlets that are doing well. Like, I'm thrilled that they were able to shut down stores in areas that were having too much theft and all sorts of problems, especially because I see the news with some of these areas that it's okay to steal up to $1,000 worth of goods. It drives me nuts. And then you'll see YouTube videos of people bragging about them walking in and stealing stuff. To me, that's just disgusting. And if Target's able to close some stores in some areas that they deserve to have those stores shut down, and they shouldn't be giving them, like, we have to respect that they're giving us a value by putting their store in our area to allow us to go in and get goods from them, whoever that is, and not have this attitude of this big corporate company is just taking advantage. No, they're providing a service. Anyway, off my soapbox. Either way, if they're able to shut down some stores in some areas that it's phenomenal that they can't, good. It didn't hurt them that they went woke and not woke and whatever else, and I don't keep up on that. But I gotta tell you, all the people who whine in the comment sections about I'm never going back again, there's one of two or three people like that. Either they never went there to begin with, so they're just ranting because they don't like the company to begin with, so who cares? Number two is they're not going to go there for a few months because they shop there all the time. Maybe it lasts 6 months, potentially a year. Eventually, they're going to get over it and forget the reason that they don't even go there, or they're just going to need something. They're going to go back. It'll start out slowly, and then it'll get back to normal. Or you get this person who went there occasionally, and they don't go there anymore. Really, in all three scenarios, this big I'm never going to shop there type of thing that happens with companies, oh well, like, it'll fix itself out over time. I used to hear it about Chipotle when they had those problems, maybe, I don't know, it was probably like 8 or 10 years ago, and nobody even knows what I'm talking about. And that was actually why I loved Boeing when I loved it, because I'm guessing not a whole lot of people right now remember what happened with Boeing that caused the stock to go down. If you do, make a comment in the comment section. I'd love to see it because that's cool. You're old like me and you remember this stuff. But that's kind of my point. With time, people forget the reasons that they stop using companies and just go about their life. So let's see, we talked about let's save for our future. I talked about Target. I mentioned that I picked up Oracle. I didn't go into the details a whole lot. And here we are. So those of you who are curious, we spent about 4 or 5 days in Tokyo, and I love Tokyo. Now, I love China even more than Japan, and I will explain why, and we've only been here not even 24 hours yet. But what I love about Tokyo is take Manhattan, but then clean it and make it safe and not all the other things. The subway system, other than being overcrowded, is phenomenal. Like, the trains, if they say it's coming at 8:42, it comes at 8:42. It really is amazing, and everything is digital. You just use your phone to pay for things. I love that stuff. People are really polite. I took a picture of this sidewalk for a buddy of mine to kind of explain how clean it is. Now, it's not as clean as China in some of the cities, which is really, I know, like Americans, we have this thought process on Chinese, but if you went to Chengdu, China, you would be amazed. I made a joke about it, but I'll talk about China in a minute. So it's kind of like Manhattan. You have this phenomenal big city with tons of stuff to do. The people are super polite, but it's just cleaner and safer, which is why I really love Tokyo. I feel like I could live there. On top of it, it's actually really reasonably priced. Now, I'm sure that housing is not reasonably priced and that it's expensive to find an apartment, and things are much smaller, just like New York City is, that for me, who lives in somewhere where you can get more space, I don't like being like cramped in. But if you took that out of the equation and you just had the city life, it's super easy to get around. The transportation, the public transportation, and the costs, it's just such a fun city. And I feel like if I moved to Japan, the food is so healthy, like I would just naturally end up losing weight. I know that sounds nuts, but you go to a restaurant and the portion size is appropriate, it tastes pretty good, and it's not unhealthy for you. So I enjoy that about Tokyo. So now we're in China. And I think China may be one of my most favorite places to go. And it surprises me so much because what I learned when I was in school and my preconceived notions of China and how wrong they were, like all of this, Big Brother is watching and this communism and how it works and everything else. I, I don't notice any of that. Now, maybe if you live here, it's different, but it looks like anywhere else, it's a bit of a capitalist society, so it's changed in a lot of ways. But because of all those things, stuff gets done. Like if they want to put in a new highway, they just put it in. They don't have to have all of these discussions about whether some worm lives there that's endangered or anything else, or how it's going to impede on the beauty and have 400 different brains making the decision. The boss just says this is where the road goes and the people follow and do it. So there's a certain amount of efficiency that comes with their way of doing things. On top of that, they are unbelievably nice people. Like they are so friendly and willing to chat and help and be useful. It's so cool, and they work hard. So the other thing that it adds is similar to Japan. Part of what I like about Asia is the safety. The cameras everywhere and everything else. Nobody's looking to give anybody a hard time because they're watching. Now, they are not literally sitting there watching all the time, at least to the best of my ability. But if something happened in an area and you had something stolen, they have the ability to pull up the cameras and see what went on or what happened, or if you got stabbed. I mean, I don't really see that happening here. That happens so much more in America. Here, I don't worry about walking around, or if I leave something on a table, I don't sit there having to worry about it or think about it or watch it. I can get up and walk away and come back and don't worry about my things being bothered. I don't even know that the people think so much about, oh, he left his phone, I'll go grab it, when they're not paying attention. Man, when my son was a kid, he left his phone at Dave & Buster's for like literally a minute or two before going, oh, I think I left my phone at that other game, and it was just gone. That would so not happen in China, and that would so not happen in Japan. And I think Americans have a lot to learn about the behavior of what people act like in some of these other countries, because Europe has the same problems as us. And then you add to China all the food and the personality. It's kind of what I love here. When you go to Japan, it's a little bit too much like, I mean, everybody going to work, all the men, it's like black pants, white shirt, black jacket. They have a good efficiency in their politeness and everything else, but it's so regimented, it doesn't allow for personality. You get off the plane in China and people are making noises and laughing and joking and yelling and getting in fights, and it just comes to life, which I think is so cool. Then you add all the restaurants and the affordability. I mean, everything in America has just gotten out of control expensive. Now, what are we doing here? Well, my in-laws were kind enough to allow us to buy some furniture or treat us to help us to redo our house. So we're coming here and we're going to go to the furniture stores to find the things that we like. And then we're actually going to go to the factories where my aunt has people that she knows, or my wife's aunt. And we're going to talk to the factories about having the furniture built, and they'll build it to scale. And what I'm really interested to see, because part of what started the conversation is on our last trip, I kept saying to my wife, like, we would go to lunch and I would be like, oh my God, do you notice how good quality the chairs and the table are? And look at the lattice. Everything here is done better than it was done back in like the 1970s in the US. It's all hand done, really solid. Wood is still wood instead of press board. And like when I'm talking about the lattice that I'm joking about in the restaurants, and we're not talking about fancy places, I'm just talking, we walked into some old small restaurant to get some dumplings or something. It's like hand carved, beautifully done lattice in the ceiling. And I don't always notice these things, but I sure noticed it on the last trip. Even the doors are like these big, heavy, solid wood doors. And I joked about, so when I was a kid, we used to have heavy, solid wood doors. Well, one day or one year, my mom needed to replace them, and she did, and now the doors were like light and hollow. Well, that's just what they've become. And I think if you even had those solid wood doors and shut the door in the US, it would break that little thing that actually, stops the door when you go to close it, because we've gotten so used to these things being made differently. So it wasn't any other reason than the quality here is just so phenomenal that I kept talking about it. And then one of my wife's friends mentioned it. So she said something to her parents, were like, oh yeah, of course. Like, wood floors are still wood and this and that and the other. So we're gonna go to the factory. We get to inspect the different materials. They have all different grades of leather and this and that. And then it's supposed to be unbelievably affordable on top of it. My understanding is it's about 20 cents on the dollar, and then you have to factor in for shipping and everything else. So I'm interested to see the process. It feels a little overwhelming because I don't know that we'll have the time to get everything done, because her aunt and uncle are going to come out. We may try to do a couple days in Macau and make it a little bit of a fun trip too. Anyway, ask any questions. Let me know what you're curious about. I'm happy to discuss it. Markets, travel, China, Japan, any of it, I'm all happy to discuss and answer any questions anybody has to the best of my ability. As always, do me a favor if you can. Hit that like button, smash the subscribe button. Man, I said that backwards. I hadn't done that in a long time. I've had it right for a while. Let's see. Hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, make some comments in the comment section. You have no idea how much I appreciate it and how much it helps YouTube's algorithm. Also, the lives on Tuesday, I will start them up again once I get back home. It's been too difficult to do videos and time things, and it's going to be a little sporadic for the next couple of weeks until I get back home, and then I will start doing it again. Maybe even I'll get a new microphone and set up, because we're going to maybe redo the office. Anyway, have a great day. I'm really excited for everybody. I hope that the markets just shoot back up through the rest of the year. It's kind of what I am hoping and thinking, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Oh, I almost forgot. I've also been picking up Amazon. I don't want to leave that out of the equation because I kind of took a look and it reminded me. I really love Amazon here. I think anywhere below $240 seems really attractive. It kind of feels like the one that's been out of favor lately, kind of like Google was, and I think that'll go on for a while. I think maybe they have soft earnings going for the next quarter. I don't know what'll happen. I guess that's a bad thing to throw out there, because I don't know it'll be earnings, but they just seem like the Mag 7 right now that is lagging a bit, and I find that eventually it catches itself. So Amazon, I've been picking up. They're one of the greatest companies in the world, and if they're the ones kind of lagging behind, I see that as an opportunity. Anyway, again, that is not financial advice. That is just what I've been doing for me. Please don't follow what I do. Reach out to your advisors. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.